Hey there, JJ here. We are going to be talking about how events work inside of PostHog, identify events, normal events, front-end events, back-end events, auto capture. How do they all work in conjunction, in parallel, to get you a full story of how people, users, are navigating your marketing, your product, and ultimately driving revenue. You probably first installed PostHog via GTM or straight on your site, and you were like, oh my goodness, this amazing data's flowing in. We're good, everybody. Happy smiles, happy tears, we are off to the races. What you then realize is you start hitting limits. You start hitting the limits of PostHog, and you're like, uh-oh, we've got a problem here. So, what is the auto capture? The auto capture is right here. You can see this auto capture event showing up here. We are under the activity, we are under explore here, and we currently have the event count view. You can see here that there has been 2,400 event counts, and that is almost as many page views that have occurred, right? So you're almost going to double the amount of page views using the auto capture events. And then you also have these page leave events and these rage clicks and these other web vitals, etc. So that auto capture adds quite a bit. If we then turn this into the PostHog default view, and we hop into, oh, look at this person right here. Now, let's hop into this exit intended event right here. Actually, let's find one that's oh, right. Look at this person right here clicked on this. So if you hop into this actual event, you hit the little thing right here, you will see all the information that PostHog is collecting, right? This is PostHog's properties, the current URL that they're on, the auto capture, is it disabled or is it on? You can see all of these different events that are coming in from PostHog, and then this is what's being captured, right? They have the actual properties that are being captured alongside that event, whether they're person properties or properties of the actual event. We'll talk about that later. So how does that work? If you want to turn this off, which I'd recommend that you do, I don't think, unless you are a very low volume site, and by low volume, I mean less than 2,000 sessions per month, you probably want to turn this off. Every client that we work with, auto capture is off because otherwise you end up with a massive volume of events. How do you turn that off? Let's go to settings, and then you're just going to turn off auto capture right here. So if you scroll on down, turn off auto capture, there you go. You can turn off a few other things here as far as web vitals, right? If you want to turn those off. Auto capture is the big culprit of massive volume. Great, JJ. So now that we have our auto captures off, I want to still capture other things. I want to capture when someone views a call to action, when someone views something else, when someone clicks on the call to action link. How do I do that? I'm so glad you asked. So what you can do is this simple script right here. Is you can take this script and you can deploy it via Google Tag Manager. That's our recommended method on the browser side of things. And you can say, hey, I want to copy and paste this. I'm just going to copy this and let's make a new tag. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. And we're going to create a new HTML tag inside of Google Tag Manager. We're going to throw this in and we have posthog.capture, and that is going to deploy right after the default base script that PostHog has. And we could say here, I want to deploy this on viewed CTA viewed. And then here we could type in a property of what CTA name, and then we could type in the name of the CTA. Maybe it's called PostHog Audit. So this is something you could do where you could say, hey, posthog.capture and the CTA viewed, and then you could have the CTA name. Maybe we want to get rid of the color, and Bob's your uncle. You now are off to the races, and you have this capturing that event, and then we can trigger it whenever we want to. This is how you can embellish and add more events without using that auto capture to capture every single button click or link click or whatever it might be. You can now use Tag Manager to send that event in very straightforwardly to your PostHog instance. Now you're probably asking yourself, JJ, why did you put PostHog capture as CTA viewed? Well, the event names really do matter. We like to use the object action framework. So you basically say what the object is. In this case, it's CTA, call to action. And then the action is viewed. And then we added a property to define the name of the CTA. Hey, are you pulling your hair out right now and like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of things we have to think through? Go over to visionlabs.com/contact and submit a contact form. Just put in you want to talk about PostHog. Let's get through it. We can run a GA4 audit on your existing setup. We can mirror things over. We can get your system better off and using both front-end data like Google Analytics would, and then also start using back-end data to get your full life story inside of one system that then you can start acting on and then syncing it to other platforms and making your ads perform better. This is helpful for very high volume events, so you don't overwhelm yourself with trying to sift through all these events at once. You can look at the properties to say which events have been viewed. The other option I'll show you here in our exact instance is if you hop into your activities and you scroll on up here and you change this from this to event count, and let's look at a bigger range, and I'll show you some examples that we use inside of ours. So here you can see lead generated Looker Studio cheat sheet. We've chose to take in that property of which lead was generated and add that here to the actual event name. So at a glance, you can see how many Looker Studio cheat sheets have been downloaded, 41. Same thing for lead generated for data order of operations or our image metric grid. We also have this lead generated general event. This event is a duplicate and also has the properties of the other events, right? So we can count on these. There's been 102 leads generated, but we also know that these are 41 of these, but they're not additive. You don't add them together. In general, we've had 101 leads that have been generated on our site. Same thing goes for lead engage. If someone's been on one of our lead magnet pages, they get the engaged lead. And if someone's been on has an impression, they've seen our lead magnets. This is how we structure our content using this something we call a foresight system to store events in a way that makes sense down the line. We have a ton of testing things in here, so it's a little bit of a nuance because we test so much on our end to try and make sure we deploy this the best possible way for clients. But that is how you can get browser events into the system and go from there. Now let's run through on the back-end events, right? This is what Google Analytics 4 would call measurement protocol. That is a nightmare to handle, but I'm going to show you how to do this with a low-code, no-code solution and just give you a concept of how this might be helpful. So if you were to try and get an event into PostHog, here's an example. You would have the web, right? They'd go and submit a form. You'd trigger that from the browser and say, hey, we triggered this event. A lead has been generated, lead generated, contact. Here would be the event, right? So it'd be lead generated, contact us, right? That's object action framework. And then what lead was done? It was the contact us. Maybe you have something in your CRM, right? So this information goes to your CRM and you say, hey, they're qualified. We now know they're qualified because we used 6 cents to figure out the information or we did something else. And now the CRM knows they're qualified. Do you want to send this event, right, to PostHog of lead generated, contact us, qualified? Right, you can send this event now back to PostHog to know that they've been qualified, and maybe you have a 2-step form where once they're qualified, your sales rep reaches out and you say, hey, sales rep, we need more information. You could also send that in here, lead generated, contact us, qualified, and then more information, right? Maybe you have this where you say lead generated and you say information gathered. I'm just using the same framework, right, of what was happened, information, and then it was gathered. These events, right, the browser doesn't happen. Maybe you have a form, maybe you have a type form, maybe you have something else that you are using to get this data to PostHog. Your CRM, maybe you're using HubSpot, maybe you're using something else. So how could you get that to PostHog? There's a million different ways. You can use webhooks. You can use all these different methods. You can always look at the different implementation docs. It's very hard to give broad sweeping example, but if you head into settings, you can see examples for how to use that with their product analytics specifically. Here is a low-code solution to do this. Again, not the way to do it for every which way, but I just want to give you an example. So here we are inside of a tool called N8N. It's like a low-code automation tool, and there's actually a PostHog authentication, so that they help you with the authentication. What you can do is right here, you have the event created, and I'm just going to show you exactly how this works. So here we have we're going to create an event, and it's going to be called test lead generated contact, what we just kind of ran through. And I'm going to use this distinct ID, which is how it identifies who we are, of JJ+2. And we're going to have the lead name of contact, size of big. And I'm going to execute this step, and we're going to try it out. So the status of OK coming in. And I'm going to hop back into this. We're going to look at our activity report, and we are going to see what has happened. There we go. So here is the person of test lead generated, contact us. I am a very complicated person in life because I've done this so many times. So here's all the different sessions that have been stitched together by PostHog to try and figure out who I am. This is not normal, but what you can see is if you click on these events, you'll see this event come in, this test lead generated, and we can see, hey, let's figure out exactly what we want to do, and maybe we want to add in more properties. So you can add in person properties, set once properties. There's a million different type of properties, debugging properties, or just see the raw event as it came in. And we can see here all the different types of properties, and we can see the set of where they came in from there, and then the set once right here. So all of these options, you can see the size of big and distinct ID right here of JJ and the lead name of contact. Again, there are a million ways that this works. There's so many different things you can do. But I just want to show you this really simple way of how you can do that inside of PostHog, lead name, contact, size of big, and you can just go hog wild, get it PostHog, of how to do this. Okay, now we have this concept of identify. Let me run through exactly what you can look for. Identify is PostHog's version of saying, how do you know if this is a person that you want to identify? In their settings, by default, the identify call is used for both anonymous and non-anonymous users. So what that means is that if you're using the identify call, you're identifying an anonymous person until they become unanonymous, and then it stitches them together and says, hey, this ID of 123 ABC became JJ at Vision Labs. Let me show you where those settings are, because you're not going to get it by default, I promise. Okay, so here is this default script that you have, and then you can see person profiles of identified only. If you change this to always, which I'd recommend you do, is always will create a person property for every anonymous user. Everyone who's anonymous to your site, they say, hey, we're going to store this information until they become identified, right? Until they give us their email address or their phone number or create an app in your application or create a profile. They're going to store that profile as a profile that keeps getting appended to. Then, once you know more information about them, you can update that using the identify call. I'm going to show you this in the backend because that's probably where you're going to end up using this. You need to identify them in the browser as well inside of your backend. So let me just change this from an event to an identify call. And now what we're doing is we're adding properties to that person field. So maybe we want to have, like, I don't know, company size or company name, right? Maybe name is Vision Labs. And then here, maybe we have, we want to have the company location, and we're going to put Reno, Nevada. All right, so here we have identify, and I'm just going to put JJ+2. We're going to hit execute. And the beauty of this is if we hop in here and we look at the identify under activity, hit reload. So there we go. So here's the identify app, the identify event, and we can hide PostHog properties to make it quick. So company location is Reno, Nevada. Company name is Vision Labs. And we can go to person property, and we can see all of these different types of people properties, set once, debug, all there inside of this identify call. So that joined it to my profile, right? It said, hey, JJ+2 equals this person. We're going to combine that together, and we're just going to append that to his profile. How do you identify them on the browser? It's super straightforward. All you have to do is use posthog.identify and then give them your email address. So here we are using these double brackets, but you could just type in JJ+2, right, at visionlabs.com. I think I might have to put double quotes on this. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't hard-coded something in GTM. Okay, so this would then identify me. You'd put this with your variable, but you could load this in the browser once you have their email and consent and email, to then fire that off, right? So you'd have the event coming in from the browser, and then once those downstream events happen, you can join them all together in PostHog and see the entire user journey. So there you go. We've talked about the auto capture, how to name your events, why you should name events, when you want to use properties to either break down events or embellish those events, how to send events from the browser using GTM, and how to use events coming from a different method, whether that's a webhook or the backend system. I showed you N8N, but you're going to have to use whatever type of code base that you have. Again, a little bit of a nuance there, but we now know how, at least if you wanted to do low code or no code or hack something together, you could using N8N. We then dove into identify calls of showing, hey, here's a very straightforward method of identifying on the front end so that you can identify them on the back end, and now they're all identified together in one big happy family of events that live under that person profile. And now we have a very good understanding of how events work. Any questions at all, hop over to visionlabs.com, fill out a contact form, and we could probably help you get this purring and you acting on your data, not just looking at it like you used to.